today we're going to talk about the CRM. CRM as a software, right? Also CRM, if we look at that, has been a software that has been profiled to be used only by sales. And I mean, can we afford that? Because really at the end of the day, even the organization thinks that way. When we look at central CRM admin, these are the guys who have provisioning rights, coordination controls, and they are customizing the CRM to kind of reflect the situation or scenario that's suited for only sales use. But we're here today to really help us change that perspective on why it should be used by everyone. And considering all of us works for customers, right? We may be from different departments, but we all work for that customer. So how do we converge? How do we tap into the CRM and make sure that it is of use to every single roles within your organization? So let's take a trip down memory lane, right? The good old days before the CRM came along, the spreadsheet eras. So what we're seeing right now is the world's very first spreadsheet called Zakya. If you kind of recall this, this was originally released by Apple, or for Apple too, by Zoho Corp, sorry. It was actually released in the 70s. All right, you find this a lot on Apple II computers. And that was a great invention that completely reimagines and improve the way work was being done on a computer, right? So I can imagine customers' activity was also done on a spreadsheet back then. Even more so sales, right? Maybe tracking a deal stage, status, closing date, sales prices, product prices, so on and forth. Even till this day, it is used for multiple different scenarios by different teams. Project management does that, accounting, generating payment, right, tracking. Even in our personal life, planning a wedding or maybe going on a trip, we use spreadsheet. That's the power of it. It was used as a tool in most of the different scenarios. It has that versatility. But also its effect is, using a spreadsheet, since it's so, in a sense, easy to use, versatile, and effective, right? There is this illusion that, we don't fix what's not broken. And I want to relay an example here. Now, imagine you're a company trying to close a specific deal, and it's a very important deal, time sensitive as well, and that information sits in the spreadsheet, locked away in the spreadsheet owned by another sales manager. That's a big headache. You don't want to get caught in that situation, right? Even marketing itself, these days, marketing, we do and work with a lot of our client data, right? We need to look into the demography data, the behavioral data, and things like this, and understand the progress of that lead so that we can do a little bit of a segmentation and target them better for EDM campaigns blasting and things like this, right? So support faces their own issue as well, and the list goes on and on. So again, these are not isolated stories. These are actually common symptoms of traditional systems, spreadsheets, right? That doesn't quite unite all the information contextually. And I think this tells us one thing. This tells us that humans can be very habitual. As I said, we try to not fix what's not broken, right? And even with a CRM available, you'd be surprised that spreadsheet use is still more common, right? There is a downside to that. If you're working with a spreadsheet, there are thousands and rows of records, imagine, of their customers. You have to conduct a VLOOKUP or vertical lookup, right? And obviously, with today's sales landscape, it's gotten way more challenging. It's not as linear anymore, right? There are a lot of signals to catch online, social media. Maybe someone comes into the website, someone read a forum and things like this. So multiple different angles that we have to consider. It's challenging, right? And I think that's why a CRM existed, right? That's why a CRM was invented, to help unleash better understanding of our customers with as much contextual information as possible. Things like, where did this customer coming from? Who has they spoken to? Right? What were type of materials that they were exposed to? Or various touch points of the brand that they have interacted with, so on and forth. And that comes from a place of customers really matter. CRM stands for customers really matters. At least that's to me, right? So a traditional CRM, or rather a traditional sales process, as you can tell, is pretty linear. Now, the CRM is designed to actually house information of customers. That's without a doubt, right? You need to know the product and services they have purchased, the annual recurring revenue they generate, maybe the sales touch points, the conversation they had. Again, all this information helps position our engagement better with them, no doubt. But the traditional CRM was also kind of viewed as linear in the sense where you capture this lead, right? And maybe you have some conversation with that becomes a contact, right? And you work and nurture it towards a potential. And sooner or later, you start managing that account in the long run within your CRM. That is the CRM. That was the CRM of yesteryears. So thing is also, we also perceive CRM to only be used by sales. As I mentioned, that with current sales landscapes, it's gotten into a web of connection. There are multiple different permutations to look at. There are multiple teams involved as well. So I want us to think about this. Is it only a tool? Or rather, is CRM only a tool used by sales? Think about that, and we're going to debunk that myth today. So in a company, the analogy is like a keyboard, right? Everyone works together to serve the users, to serve the customers. It's like having a circuit board and then putting a plate on to be able to mount that switch to the circuit board, putting that stabilizer, and finally that keycaps. And that clicky experience gives you a really good experience. So if you are a novelist, you have a really good keyboard, you can create good. That analogy can be used for CRM, right? If you have a good CRM, a good enough CRM that is usable, that's simplified for use, you can service your customers better. You can engage, you can do sales, you can do many things that's customer related, actually better, right? Much more efficient. So let's not look too far. I want to take a look at all our own personal experience. I'm not going to name names, but just by looking at this, I think we can get an idea of what this super app is, right? So it's a food ordering process. An experience like such is where we scroll our mobile, right? A simple scrolling, clicking, checking out gets the food delivered to us. And how is that so? So it all is attributed to this robust order management system operating on that source of truth, right? For your customers, or whether delivery agent, or whether it's for your restaurants, making the food or preparing the food. This system is well integrated, right? From order notification to preparation, time management. So usually users get to tell how long the kitchen takes to prepare the food, how long the agent gets the food to you, to your doorstep. And you have that sort of a real-time feedback. Now, I or you may wonder, how is this possible? It all operates on one source of truth. And that's using the order as a source of truth, right? Because mobile ordering back then was, of course, in a sense, like a one-dimensional experience, if you will, if you can put it that way. Now, these days, it's really, really changed, right? The landscape has changed. We use order as a source of truth with that web of connection that we saw earlier on, or rather what I like to call collaboration that reshapes the consumer's experience. And can we see the same in CRM, right? That's what we want to talk about today. So in digital sales, when a sales deal is closed or as we're approaching that, there are multiple activities and processes that we have to work in parallel or in tandem. And maybe on one hand, you need to start preparing customized legal documentation. On another, you need to start thinking about onboarding process, walking them through that, right? So in that mix, of course, there's always a lot of coordination happening, a lot of communication. That means you have to send email, you have to send phone calls, right? You got to do meetings. And in between that, there are other nuances involved. Things like, who do I get in touch with to collaborate on, right? Okay, to collaborate with, what are the types of documents I have to look at, right? And is there an SLA today? Is there a specific time frame to this? Where, when, how should I get it delivered? All these questions starts coming into the process. And when you don't consider that, that becomes a disconnected process, right? It results inevitably into a poor customer experience. So we can do better. I know we know this meme, right? It's a success baby meme. So we're going to see how we can do it. So from customer perspective, of course, we saw with super apps or with marketplaces like Shopee or Lazada, ordering, payment, receiving the parcel feels really smooth. It's almost second nature. And in fact, the UI was kind of built that way. It guides us in a way where checkout is easy, right? It's deliberately done so. And we enjoy the experience as consumers, but really we don't think about the back-end scenes, right? We don't often think about the work behind the scenes where the order management team works with the vendor to send out the right order on time, right? And it's being made promptly, right? So there are a ton of team activity happening behind the scenes, a lot of combined workflows, a lot of combined processes, and that's a relay, right? working with customers, making sure that they are happy, or the cliche word is delight, is this is a relay race. We need to work as a team. We need to pass the baton. And with sales, a lot of times, this is a customer-facing team. They rarely operate alone, right? So sometimes they work with marketing work with them, equip them with leads, walk them through the MQL to SQL conversion process, right? Imagine more stakeholders are involved, right? In the event where you have to do order management or work with order management team, you need to make sure that the correct item of order is sent out, and it's sent out on time, right? And you need some form of tracking involved, some visibility and traceability as well. And you don't get that if we reference it back to this spreadsheet. You don't get that with spreadsheet, right? Because spreadsheet data exists within the cell itself. So we don't see that relation going on. And again, even in that traditional CRM, if you are using one or have used one before, you will see a ton of modules and fields being exposed to you all at once. And that takes a ton of experience with using the CRM, or maybe with learning the CRM, to actually navigate well throughout the information, or finally to the information that you need. And to make matters worse, sometimes a lot of process, a lot of workflows, right? So any form of collaboration, of course, may somehow be limited to, of course, the modules that you get exposed to, all right, or the information that you actually have, but it's not able to share because of certain tech limitations. So we spoke about passing the baton. Let's take a look at that, and that's how we can achieve with CRM for everyone. And that's what we are here to learn about, the act of democratizing the CRM. And essentially what this means is making sure the right information with the right context, it's given to you, to your specific role. Now, if I'm a marketer, which I am, right, I would probably, before sending out any sort of campaigns or creating any form of newsletters and any kind of marketing materials, I would need some customers data, historical data, maybe on past purchases, demography data, the search and browsing history, whatnot, or possibly even solutions that were given, right, to their support queries, because sometimes we can very cleverly work towards a cross-sell, upsell opportunity with those, right? So these are information, these are what we call contexts that are needed for specific roles. And each team obviously needs a specific space, or rather a workspace within the CRM, right? They need the right information. They need the right access to give and grant them the extra abilities. And that's why Team Spaces is launched within the new CRM UI, or rather CRM for everyone. This is a dedicated space for every team within the CRM, all right? And again, this is how it looks like in the traditional CRM, right? Obviously, how the modules are arranged was actually in a horizontal format. Okay, now everything is sort of vertical. It is done in one same UI itself, and traditional users were left with typically chunks of, like what I said, modules to navigate. And modules are basically modules like leads, accounts, deals, invoices, quotes, and those sort of give you access to necessary information about their customers, right? So that's what module is. And back then, module were kind of thrown to you at one go. For seasoned CRM users, of course, you get to use that as a walk in the park, right? For anyone who checks into the CRM maybe once every bi-weekly, it's not going to be so easy, right? And that space in which we see here, where we are able to create new team spaces, manage new team spaces, those were originally group tags. Now we are reimagining them to be spaces, and that allows us to club all these modules that make sense to each users from specific roles and department. So what do we mean by this? What do we mean by every team process must be emulated in the CRM? And the keyword is contextually. Obviously, using the marketing example again, a marketer likely needs a win-loss analysis, a case study, maybe access to battle cards that they are preparing for sales, so that they're able to make a little bit of a better comparison with competitors, right? Marketers will not need access to things like maybe an inventory module, maybe a finance module, right? And that's what we mean by weeding out the confusion, making sure things are streamlined, making sure information are given the right way. And we spoke about spaces, right? Spaces is creating that safe space for different departments. Now we want to talk about team modules. And team modules means that we create a bespoke modules that captures every team processes uniquely. These are unique modules that will sit inside the team space and not beyond. Meaning to say it's not going to flood the general organization CRM with unnecessary modules. We are going to not go around spamming creation of modules. That's what we mean. All right. So it gives your team the extra abilities to work with, the extra boost, if you will, right? To work with necessary information. This is how it looks like. Okay, in that creation process, you can create alt modules. Obviously, alt modules it means that it's accessible to pretty much every user of the CRM, regardless of role. And team modules is only limited and confined to that team's very module of use. Okay, this means custom modules. So the way to build it is simple, right? There is this pre-built templates to choose from. We've got many. If you need a project management module, is there. Something for legal is there as well. Customer onboarding, so on and forth. So these are one of the ways to really get things started really quickly for non-technical users. And another feature that's not shown in this slide is an AI-powered module creation feature. And that's not trained on any random consumer LLM, right? That is on Zakya's very LLM, trained with Zoho's use case. So Zakya means Zoho Intelligent Assistant. And that's one of our AI feature that's layered in most of our solutions, in this case, CRM. That's not a standalone. So that's the disclaimer that we want to say, right? And obviously, in that process of creation, you get to configure settings, access right, which is extremely important. Having granularity in terms of looking at which roles should have access to exportation of data, to sending an email, right? Merging a document with specific record. These are important things to do from the get-go. And in that process of configuration, this is available. And that's what I meant, right? Here's a little bit of a clip. So back then in the traditional CRM, obviously we have to go in that setup page. You see a unified setup where you have to navigate through the configurations. This contextual administration means that within that left-hand panel, you specifically drill into that module itself. You look into the specific configurations that you want, right? And you edit it just there. Okay. So the concept is making sure that all modules is well defined, all teams are well collaborated, right? And make sure that everything is well coordinated as well. That's a feature called requester modules. At a lot of times, or in a lot of scenarios, sometimes we work across teams, right? And we need to request for collaterals or documentations. And this little graph and diagram shows this, right? So in sales, obviously, as we approach a deal closure, we may be requesting a case study, maybe a customer request for it, to look at any sort of success story or social proof generated by the industry peers. And on the other hand, you need to start prepping a customized contract. All right. And obviously, in that scenario, the salesperson identifies that need for a drafted contract that's related to the new deal for our customer, right? Or new opportunity. So in that CRM, he initiates that contract request from that deal, right? And that acts as that formal trigger in the CRM. That request gets routed to legal team, all right, or the contracting team, who then use a template and with all those relevant data that sits in this customer record that is nested under the CRM, context module, account module, right? He used the template, merge this documentation together. And the salesperson gets to monitor the entire process. He gets to monitor the contract status within the CRM of the deal record without leaving the platform entirely. What more is they get notification as well that this contract is right now in the contracting phase, is approaching finalization, right? Or maybe it's approaching approval, negotiation, whatever the stage may be, you get clarity on that. And we put a marketing lens on, the same goes for marketing, right? You initiate the case study request to a marketer source for it, sends it to you. So that's the idea of, really getting collaboration done within the CRM itself. And this is sort of how it looks like, right? So the user here, case by case basis, is looking and requesting the creation of a custom product presentation that is specific to the hospitality industry. Obviously, sales don't have, maybe the bandwidth, the time, or the right resources to build this. He may be requesting one from marketing. And he can do that actually within the CRM itself, instead of raising it through emails or separate calls, WhatsApp conversation. The list goes on and on. And that tracking process is extremely streamlined. You get to be able to track every of its process, right? In this case, maybe the case status. Okay, it's time for demo, so let's head over to our CRM view. Now, this is the renewed UI of Zoho CRM. If you're familiar with the older version, you would generally see navigation of modules being flushed to the top. So again, it was pretty much a left to right pattern. This time around, we have it on the left. The navigation pattern are pretty much like this. And again, what we're seeing here are various default modules that we can find in the vanilla version of our CRM. And of course, we are able to see this because we are essentially at the modules tab. So quick general navigation around this new CRM view. What we have here is actually reports, and we don't want just the CRM to house basic customers information like deal engagement even, right? We want to make the most use out of this data and kind of convert that into some form of information. That's where reporting comes in, where you build reports and you translate that into analytics as well. And we spoke a little bit about the requester module. And essentially, this is where when we get to work on documentations and collaterals between teams and across stakeholders, we will want to raise it. And this is where we will generally raise the request, right? I will show you just in a couple minutes time. And there is also a marketplace over here. So this is where we get the integration as well as extension setup. So again, if you're looking at things like maybe establishing a RTC, apps, or maybe creating integration between a telephony system with the CRM, this is where we essentially will be able to tap into that. So integrations have already been categorized at Zoho level. Obviously, as you know, Zoho is a massive ecosystem of apps and services. Generally, when we click into that, we will get to see all the available integrations as well as extensions available. And we have a couple of stuff with other vendors as well. So search a record is fairly simple. CRM is a pretty big database as you start putting in and piling it up with more data over the years. So naturally, you want to put your fingers on information that you need right away. And this is where things comes in handy, where we have this unified search, where we run our searches in a really clear and concise format, but more importantly, within the CRM itself. All right. So, and there is also Zakya, which is our AI initiative. This has been around for the last couple of years and deeply embedded in part of Zoho's tool, in this case, Zoho CRM, right? So basically, like any other AI, you prompt this, you will get the insights as well as output that you need. So general navigation, we are done. So let's talk a little bit about modules as well as team spaces. Now, coming back to the modules tab, this is the general lead page, and we're seeing this, makeup and compilation of many different modules made up of the default modules as well as some bespoke custom modules that we built along the way. What we would consider these are actually folders, and this comes in really handy. I love this aspect of this new CRM because it keeps things really streamlined, takes care of the housekeeping aspect. So when we spoke about team spaces, essentially this view that we're seeing very much relates to the overall CRM organization view. Now we want something more specific to marketing, or maybe something more specific to projects. We actually have them. This can be created. Basically, we have a project management view over here, and you will see immediately the view changing. All right, making up of a couple of default modules that sits inside project management module, as well as a couple of custom bespoke applications or modules, right, that have been created. And the same goes for finance and a couple of other team spaces as well. And you get the general idea. Now, the question is, how do we go about creating it? Fairly simple. You can create it from this space itself without escaping the UI. Otherwise, you can also go to settings, which I'll do for now. Search up team spaces. And again, you get to see the various team spaces that I have already created for different departments and roles. And the view here that we see are also the number of users that actually have access to that team space as well. You will be able to do such provisioning at a very specific user level or by roles as well. So if you belong to a marketing role, naturally you will be parked under the marketing team space. So in the interest of time, let me go through how to quickly create a team space using one of the already created examples. So let's use marketing. Now, I'm a marketer myself. Creating team spaces should not be difficult. And really, that's the idea of democratization. And we spoke about that. How can we, have some ownership in the entire process rather than just letting CRM admin be the main general gatekeepers, right? We need to have a hand in this as well. Now, as a marketer, I will be able to come in to create a team space, add a couple of modules, and essentially when we add modules, right, this is generally made up of all the modules that you are able to find within the CRM, whether it's custom modules that we have created or the default modules that are already there. All right. So what we're seeing here are a couple of default modules. We have even created folders over here to kind of help us sort things out. And what I've done is park some custom modules over here. And this is contextual to the space of marketing. So naturally, you will see more custom module that pertains to things like campaigns performance, ABM campaigns, collateral library, which essentially means the different types of marketing collaterals. Now, what I like about this is we get to do provisioning on the spot. So what I've done here is to make this team space not only available to the super admin, which is myself, but also Mervin, who is my marketer. And we can do role-based provisioning as well, which means that we are provisioning these to marketing-specific roles, CMOs, marketers, execs. So that has already been done. And we're just going to close this out. Let's go to marketing team spaces, which I've created. And you naturally see the view changing. All right. See here are a couple of folders as well as custom team modules that we saw earlier on. To create one, how do we do so? Fairly simple. We have a couple of options. We can do things from scratch. I just want to kind of showcase to you the AI power aspect. So let's go ahead and just create team modules. Creating a really simple one over here. So let's go with a prompt like create a content module with views like this ID. All right, and I'll just give some simple prompt here and allow the AI to come figure things out on their own. So again, what's being used here is not some generic consumer LLM, right? This is trained on Zakya LLM, basically trained with copious amount of Zoho's use case. So naturally, as a marketer, as I'm giving a prompt to create a marketing module, this is going to fetch me all the contextual outputs that pertains to what a marketer needs. So I've got the correct name going on, great. So let's just go through some of these fields that have been proposed, right? Content request owner, we kind of need these as well. Request ID, it is there. Let's quickly just sort of go through this. So request type is important to us because we are going to make our sales guys request for a, let's say, a presentation deck from our marketer. So we are going to create one value over here, specific value like presentation. Okay, and this is a required field. Due date, I would like for it to be there. Urgency level, requester. All right, let's take a look at this. So it has essentially given me a lookup field. Not quite the field that I want, but it's done a tremendous job already. So essentially what I want to do is go ahead and pick a user field. And I will rename this as requester name. Okay, make this a mandatory field as well. We can, again, drag and drop these sort of things along the way. It's a fairly simple process. Status, content type, even to do a lookup field, like maybe like a type of content. Let's go with a more clearer name, collateral. Okay, and this is going to look up a custom module that I already created within the team space. It is called Qntrl library. Okay. Let's put, so basically what the related list is that it will be shown in the Qntrl library module as a related list. So when you click on that, there's some form of relation going on. So anything else? Let us just see maybe just one more simple stuff. So additional notes, let's say maybe like a requester note, right? We'll just keep it at that because we're taking quite some time over here. Now to cut the time short, let's quickly give this a folder. We're going to park it under content and requests. We're pretty happy with the result. Let's go ahead and create. Let's go ahead and create this. Perfect. Is it up? It is. And right under this, okay, let me just collapse this so we have a way clearer view of things. So under this custom module, we have, rather custom folder, we have this custom module called request content. All right, if you want to sort of check things out, you can see how it looks like over here. Ta-da! All right, now this is not the end yet because this is a module that we've created specifically for sales. What we want to do here is to go ahead and manage the access level of sales guys to this specific team module. Again, because sales folks would have very specific sales team spaces they're operating in, they might not be able to see a marketing module. Essentially, what I'm going to do here is go ahead and add a user. So now we're giving Anthony the access. He is the sales guy over here. Let's go ahead and add that. Okay, there's a couple of other stuff that you can even do over here by managing this profile. So again, under the requester column, you will be able to see the types of access that the requester, in this case, Anthony, actually have access to. All right, and that's what we meant by granularity, where we are able to, make such configurations in one spot and in one specific corner of the CRM. Now, that's not all. Let's go ahead and just finish things up with the requester setting. So naturally, once a request submission is being made, who is going to be the owner approving this? In this case, and for the ease of the demo, let's just keep it to myself. You can even go ahead and generate a link as well as a QR code and then share this with requester. Now, since we have already added Anthony, the sales guy, as a requester, what we're going to do is just toggle over to Anthony's account over here. See, we've got this little pop-up notification saying now we have access to this specific team module under marketing team space to make a request. So let's go ahead and make one request over here, all right? And this is the form earlier on. So let's say Anthony needs a presentation deck. Presentation deck. Oops. All right, let's go ahead and save that. And ta-da, it comes in as a one entry of a request. And basically, you can even do some collaboration or some form of tagging over here as well. Let's go with Nicholas. Pardon me for my pet peeve. But yeah, so this is essentially what we mean by streamlining requests, making sure that collaboration is all done on the same page with as much context as possible, with SLAs as well. If this is time sensitive, probably you want to take a timeline to this. You get full clarity even on the status of the presentation deck or any collateral request that you put out. And this doesn't just apply to marketing. It can apply to legal. It can apply to many different aspects, again, based on the types of context that you're working within. So that was how to create a request within CRM for everyone. Perfect. As Nicholas coming back in, I do see a couple of entries, just one, in fact, over here. Now, if they are made more along the ways, this is basically going to morph into a task management kind of a UI for me, right? As that approval. So a little bit of comparison for sales team, traditional contract was being done on email. There can be a lot of ding dong back and forth happening in between. It may not generate as much context as possible if you don't follow the thread carefully. The new form of contract, obviously, it's way more assigned. There is a SLA, service level agreement, time tag to that. It is on time, it is within context. It gives you as much idea and prerequisite information of where this contract came in from, who was it initiated by, and things like this. And the same goes for marketing when it comes to case study or any other sort of collaterals. And the same goes for other departments as well. It is up for you to configure. And again, with Teams module, a little bit of a summary. Team module here is about creation of module that is specific for team use and making sure that it is accessible enough for your team members. A requested profile is to make sure that we are working well in terms of communication across teams. Everything is well coordinated. You think of it like a project management, but within the CRM context. But it's done in-house across team members and departments. Okay. And again, if I can sort of put things into illustration for you, this is, or rather, the time, estimated time that one can actually save right in the entire streamlined process. We spoke about the full ordering mobile experience using order as a source of truth. In the CRM for Everyone version, deal is the source of truth. Everyone is working for their customers. Everyone is working towards that deal. So deal is the source of truth. That's where we're essentially always going to reference the point to, right? And you might think, okay, wow, back then CRM is being administered by gatekeepers. It could be a CRM admin, it could be an IT admin, right? The admin is still in control here. Now, essentially what you're doing is you give this extra access or extra autonomy to these various departmental heads, if you will. Maybe, CRM admins for that department, right? But there is a central admin still in control. And looking at CRM of yesteryears versus today's CRM, right? Today's CRM, what we are trying to do is to make sure that we reimagine it enough to make sure all these fields, modules, information are democratized at every level. If you want to get a glimpse, okay, you saw some of the screenshot earlier on, you saw some of the UI, you want to get a glimpse of CRM for Everyone, there's no better time than now than to grab your cameras, scan this QR, browse through the landing page, understand what a CRM is, and the journey and the history of CRM and how we eventually got to CRM for Everyone, right? If your organization is aspiring to digitize your sales process, aspiring to make sure collaboration between sales and others are more tight-knit, now is the time. So I'm going to leave this up for a couple of seconds. All right, let's move on, all right? So parting note is this. Imagine this, right? We're all in the theater. Each team, you can sort of refer to them as a instrument player. They may be playing different, instruments. Some the bass, some the clarinet, some the flute. All right. Despite the differences in the tools used, they are playing in unison to create the harmony in terms of the tone. It's a beautiful tone that they're creating. There is a coordinated team. There is a skill instructor, or rather what we call a conductor, right? With the right theatrical effects, it builds that lasting experience for everyone, not just for those present playing, which metaphorically represents the users, right? It's also for those who are sitting there listening, the customers in this case. So that's a little bit of that metaphor. But yes, everyone can play towards one score, despite being from different departments, despite having a little bit of difference in terms of the nature of work. Everyone can be in unison, and that's the spirit that we want to communicate with CRM for Everyone. Yeah. Here's a quick recap. Okay, we spoke about CRM for sales, obviously how we are trying to pivot that into the CRM as a database that can be used by everyone by creating very unique spaces, very unique modules, very unique access levels to various teams, and to achieve that one unison in terms of operating the CRM. And here are some ways that you can contact us. I'm not sure whether these can be clicked or you actually can. So if you can actually click on the screen, that will direct you to our social media handles, our various page in which we update all things that's new with regards to Zoho. If you're new to our newsletters, which I'm a big part of, We run a lot of monthly updates, new webinars as well. We are attending trade shows. We have seminars. That's where we will be. So connect with us in person, right? If that's always your preferred manner. I mean, for me, I personally prefer to connect human to human. So join us, follow us. I'm going to